Henderson, Nevada, right next to Las Vegas. If you guys aren't familiar, it's pretty much Las Vegas. Anyway, my main job is chief meteorologist on television at night for the Fox affiliate here in town. And with the station, I also am their primary drone flyer, gather news video for news. I gather weather video for myself. And then I also have a side business, which I do shoot with a drone. And that's really kind of kickstarted the whole drone activity for me. Is about 10 years ago, I started a business. And that is to shoot construction sites, photos, video of construction sites. And I do a little special event stuff, but it's mainly construction stuff and photos for commercial real estate.
Can we just jump right into the student questions?
Sure,
Because
yeah.
I got some emailed to me. So one of the students wanted to know, how did you get your start in meteorology? Were you always interested in this profession?
No, I kind of stumbled into that too, like the drone stuff kind of. But so I started my career, graduated from the University of Illinois in 1995. And then I got my first job in TV in Nebraska. Then I went to Idaho and then back to Illinois. And then I came out to Las Vegas. When I came out to Las Vegas in 1999, up until then, I was just a reporter and a fill-in anchor. And that's all I was. But the station, believe it or not, in 1999, they just started news in 98. And then in 99, when I was hired, they still didn't have a full-time weather person. Hard to believe, because I mean, that wasn't really too long ago, but 1999, they didn't have a full-time weather person. So what I caught wind kind of that they were going to hire a weather person. And so I started taking weather classes a year in advance. And it was probably one of the best moves of my career, where I started taking weather classes. And then when the station wanted to hire a weather person, I said, hey, I've been taking classes for a year. I already work here. In fact, you're paying for the classes through their education benefits. Can I start? And they said, can you start tomorrow? And I said, how about in 2 days? Because I really had no idea what I was doing. You can take all the classes you want, but until you actually get thrown into the fire, you really don't know what the heck you're doing. So that started it all. It wasn't in 99. I think I started in the year 2000 or 2001. The program that I took is a very popular program online through Mississippi State University. And it's not that it's that hard of a course. It's just 3 years. And so you have to take 3 years of their courses, and you got to have a lot of self-discipline to, even during the summer, to take courses online through the summer, the fall, the spring, for 3 years to get their certificate of meteorology, broadcast meteorology. So that's what I have in addition to a broadcast journalism degree. That's
super interesting stuff. And those classes must have changed quite a bit since you first went to school to what they are now, I'm guessing.
When I first started in 2000 taking these classes, or whenever I did, they would send me a big box of VHS tapes and labeled with each, and they were all 2 hours long. And so if you're not familiar with VHS tapes, if you are watching, if you're an hour into that VHS tape and you want to go back and watch what happened the first 15 minutes, you have to rewind back to the 15 minutes. Now it's all done online, you know, like this recording. If you want to go back and watch the first 5 minutes, it's just a click of a mouse, and that's all they do. So it was very different.
We have a question from Mirko, and he is in Italy. Mirko, you should be able to unmute to ask. You had a good question.
Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing fine. How about you?
I'm doing great. Actually traveling to Italy in April.
Oh, that's great. I hope you liked it.
I'm sorry?
I hope you like it.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure I will.
Sorry. Okay, so my question is, does meteorology consist in weather and drone things only, or is there more?
Could you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Does meteorology consist in weather and drone things, or is there more?
Does weather consist of meteorology?
Here, I'll help him clarify. So he wanted to know if meteorology is only consistent in weather, and obviously you pay attention when you're flying drones. Is meteorology in other industries as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, I didn't even think there was a good marriage between drones and meteorology, but I mean, I've got to know when the conditions are right to fly, right? And if there's some weather phenomenon when it's safe to fly, I certainly take the drone out and use that drone. Drones have gotten to the point where one of the drones I have now, you could fly in 45-mile-an-hour wind. And when I first started, you couldn't fly in anything higher than 15, 17 mile an hour winds. So those have advanced. But yeah, there's a lot of other disciplines that you could use a drone for that I haven't even gotten into. I know there's a lot of inspections that companies use. I know the electric company here in Southern Nevada uses drones to inspect their lines. So it's much easier to have somebody go out there with a drone, pop the drone up and inspect their electric lines for the next, 1,000, 2,000 feet than it is to have somebody actually climb up the pole and inspect those one by one. I mean, the time it takes to do that is so much longer than it would take to pop up a drone. I know here in Nevada, the mining industry uses drones to map out sections of land, and somehow they are able to use thermal technology, whatever technology they use, to map land and see, kind of get an idea of what is underneath the ground, right? And so mining industry, the electric industry uses it. There's so many more disciplines that I haven't even used, but those are the two main ones here, besides just typical photography, right?
Yeah, and then as you know, as far as meteorology, probably like pilots or anyone who deals with like the weather, they have to kind of pay attention to what you're talking about on television, right?
Yeah, and in fact, a large section of the test that you first need to take to get a commercial pilot's license does have to do with weather. And so, you do have to have some basic knowledge of weather and weather conditions before you even get your license here.
And I'm sure there's something like that because I know you guys in Italy are near the sea. I'm sure there's something like that with boating, because I'm guessing you guys need licenses as well out there for fishing and whatnot. So Ted, there was a kid in France and they wanted to know, how did you originally become interested in drones? And a second question beyond that was, what is some of the more exciting shots that you've participated in?
Okay, great question. And thanks for the question, Mirko. This one from France. How did I get started? Boy, it's kind of like getting started with weather. I mean, this was 2012, and my wife was switching jobs, and I just kind of wanted to do more with my day and get more involved with not necessarily the TV stuff, but the side business stuff and get started. Long story, but anyway, I remember looking at a website and they showed a picture of a drone that was $250,000, and the drone was no bigger than a kitchen table, and I just thought that was absolutely insane. So I did a little research and I found a company. Most of the companies back then were from China. Bought a kit. I actually soldered a drone that had 6 propellers in my garage. It took me a couple of months. I don't know how I didn't kill anybody when I popped this up and flew it. But what I would do is go out on the weekends to the park that's just down the street. I don't think I watched any football that fall. Every Saturday and every Sunday morning, I would go down there and fly. And these batteries would only last about 2.5 minutes. Now they last about 25 minutes to 26 minutes, depending on how you fly. But what I would do is I knew I wanted to use it for construction because the laws were not established back in that time. So I didn't want to break any laws that weren't established. It sounds kind of weird, but I didn't want to make anybody mad. I didn't want to fly over anybody. But I looked at construction sites first because construction sites are a controlled environment, right? There's a fence. Nobody could go into there unless you're involved in the construction. Everybody's got a helmet on in a construction site. So what I would do is I would go out to these construction sites and I'd pop the drone up, and I would take literally 200 to 300 pictures because at that time I couldn't control the shutter down on the ground. It was a GoPro camera that took pictures every 5 seconds. And here's the weird thing. I didn't have a viewfinder back then. So I would pop the drone up over a construction site and just hope out of these 300 to 400 pictures or whatever I took, and literally there were that many pictures, that there would be something usable. And there's a big water park that's here in Las Vegas. It's called Wet and Wild. And it was just the early phases of construction back then. And that was one of the construction sites that I shot. And I don't know how or why, but a construction company liked them and hired me. And so I was able to then purchase a viewfinder, and I was able to see where I was flying back then. But I look back at that right now at when I first started 10 years ago, no viewfinder. I didn't even have an indication down on the ground of when my battery was going to die. I only knew it was going to last 2.5 minutes, and I better land before that 2.5 minutes was over. Otherwise, that drone would have gone straight down on somebody or something. It's just crazy how much the technology has grown. You could fly 25, 26 minutes. I have full control of the pictures I take. I could switch to video, take video. Back then, I couldn't switch between the two. I had to land the drone and then switch to video and then pop it back up. The technology is such to where if I run into trouble and the drone is, let's say, 1,000 feet away, I push a button and the drone flies back and lands exactly where I took off from. Not only that, but let's say I'm flying around a building, around a tree, and I can see the drone and I start running into problems. This rarely happens, but sometimes it does. And I'm like, okay, just bring it back home. I don't know what the problem is. I hit the home button, and if the drone would fly straight back, it would run into trees, it would run into buildings. Now the technology is so smart that when the drone flies back to me, it remembers my path that I took to that spot, and it retraces its steps back in between trees and buildings and lands where I took it off from. So that's how I got started way back when, and the technology has just exploded.
Let's hope
that first drone wasn't $2,500 or $250,000. It was I think $700 or $400 right out of the box, but I did have to put it together. Now you can
when you put all that together, how much did it weigh when it had the 2-minute?
Boy, that's been a long time, but I have pieces of it upstairs because it did eventually crash. But it must have weighed probably 4 pounds. I think it weighed about 3 to 4 pounds.
Wow, that, I mean, you must have seen it. And can you talk a little bit, because there was a secondary question from the kid from France, and they wanted to know what is some of the more exciting drone shots that you've taken. And to add, when you guys go back and watch the recording, we'll have some of Ted's footage in the video.
By far, some of the best footage that I've ever taken is on the Las Vegas Strip. The Bellagio fountains, the volcano with the mirage, and just the Las Vegas Strip at night shows up so well on the drones these days, because when you first started years ago, the drone technology, especially shooting at night, wasn't great. But now the technology, the lens on it, picks up night video so well that the Las Vegas Strip just looks phenomenal day or night when you grab video or pictures of it with the drone.
That's amazing. And, you know, I always love seeing your work online. I'm just amazed at how impressive, you know, because you can kind of see it evolve. And like I was talking to you before, like you really see your passion in that. One of the kids from Spain emailed and they wanted to know if you could talk about how your passion for meteorology has mixed with your passion for drones.
Yeah. You know, like I said, I didn't at first realize that there was, I thought I had to choose one or the other, right? But luckily the TV station I work for and my bosses have always been very supportive of it. We've been certainly the station in the market that uses drone video the most, and they've allowed me, given me the time. So my day right now is the first half of my shift. I don't even know if I have really set hours for the first half of my shift. In fact, just about 5 minutes ago, the station texted me and I got it on my watch and it said, hey, could you go to this location and shoot drone video? And it's actually a baseball field on the west side of town that is converting their field from, they had a little football competition there. Now they're converting it back to baseball with grass. So they said, hey, could you go out and shoot that with the drone eventually today? So I'll go out and do that today. But it depends on, you know, what I'm shooting. If it's time sensitive, I have to be there at this time, then I'll go do it in the morning or the afternoon. And that's really the first half of my shift. And the meteorology has kind of helped me when I can fly. Like I didn't fly the last 2 days because it's been so windy here. Today, I know for sure that when I go out, the wind's light enough to where I can fly. And then the second half of my shift is going into the station at 8 o'clock and preparing for our 2-hour newscast between 10 o'clock and midnight, where I'm actually the chief meteorologist, and I'll actually use some of that drone video that I shot during the day as weather video. In fact, I start out my weathercast, many of them, with that video and say, you know, here was today, it was 65 degrees. You see the clouds are on the increase, or, hey, you know, it's a perfectly sunny day. We have a better weekend ahead. You know, it just mixes well. So it really is a great marriage. And thanks to the support from the station, really, that has helped me. I couldn't imagine what I would do if I had to choose between the two. because both are great jobs, and this is a mix of both of them that's perfect.
Well, we definitely like KVVU and Fox 5 and all the awesome work that you guys are doing. And we'll go with a couple more questions. I'm gonna let you go. But one of the kids wanted to know, what is your proudest professional moment?
Proudest professional moment. Well, there's actually a bunch, with weather that's pretty easy, where I could, if there's, even in Southern Nevada, sometimes we get pretty big storms. They're rare, but then, gets snow or rain or whatever. Forecasting those and being live on air with those are great, because people sitting at home or people who are watching online, really want that information, because there's a lot of outdoor activities here in Nevada around the calendar year. And it's actually, I grew up in Illinois where, that's the first thing you did is got up and you checked the weather, because there was bad weather all the time. Here, a lot of people are surprised that I think people do that a lot also, because people are so active around the calendar year that any strong wind, any rain, any chance of snow, cold weather can certainly put a damper on some of that outdoor activity. But as far as drone stuff, I can't really think of one specific, but I get a lot of satisfaction out of a newscast that is filled with drone video. And this happens more and more now, where, the first 4 or 5 stories that we cover, the biggest stories of the day, each one will either have drone video that I've shot that day or drone video that I've shot in the past year that they play over again because it's pertinent to the story. And then I'll have drone video in my weathercast. So I get a lot of satisfaction out of being able to help not only me with my weather broadcast with that drone video, but also with, helping the news side out too, with video that reporters or anchors request throughout the day, or video that I've shot at the Las Vegas Strip, or some subject that they use again because it's in the news again.
That's wonderful. And for the final question, as someone who has pivoted in your career and you kind of melded these industries together, what kind of advice would you give to these kids as they kind of go off into the world, whether they want to do drone stuff, whether they want to do meteorology or something completely different? What kind of advice could you give to them as someone pivoted so wonderfully in your career?
Great question. I look back in my career and I was anchor and reporter for a number of years. And it's not that I got burnt out doing that. It's not that I was actually looking for something else. It's kind of evolved into doing weather. And the same thing with drone stuff. I wasn't actively necessarily looking to do something else because I was burnt out on weather. I just kind of was interested in something. And so I guess my biggest advice is, instead of being great at one thing, which is fine, be good at a few different things, because you never know where that's going to lead. And if you would have told me 20 years ago, or in 1999 when I started at Fox 5, man, that's been a long time ago. If you would have told me back in 1999 that, hey, in 2022, the first half of your shift is going to be flying a drone around Las Vegas getting video, and then you're going to go into the studio and be the chief meteorologist at night, I would have said you are crazy. But I guess the best advice is just what I said: be good in a bunch of different things, but always look for other opportunities that you're interested in, to expand your career, or, kind of do more in your career than you are. The worst thing you could do is be satisfied in your career. Always be looking for that extra something you could do. Some of the most successful folks that I've worked with were able to do a bunch of different things in the newsroom well. And that gives your career longevity, and that certainly makes you more marketable if you ever wanted to move on to a different market.